The rain fell in sheets that night, pounding against the cracked windows of the old two-bedroom house where Daniel lived with his 7-year-old son, Noah. The wind rattled the loose shutters, but inside the little home, there was warmth, soft light from a crooked lamp, the smell of soup simmering on the stove, and the sound of Noah humming as he worked on a puzzle. Daniel had just gotten off his second shift at the auto shop, his hands sore and streaked with grease, his body drained from 14 hours of labor. He had only managed to keep his head above water because of Noah, and though exhaustion weighed on him, there was always something inside him that pushed forward for his boy. That night, as he stirred the pot and tried to ignore the ache in his back, there came a knock at the door. It wasn't the timid tap of a neighbor or the playful knock of Noah's friends. It was desperate, sharp, and uneven, like someone clinging to the last bit of strength they had left. Daniel froze, glanced at Noah, and then moved to the door, half expecting trouble. When he pulled it open, what he saw made him stumble back. A woman stood there, drenched in the rain, her face bruised, lips split, eyes wide and hollow. She was clutching her side as if every breath was agony, and her once expensive-looking coat was torn and muddy. For a moment, Daniel couldn't find words. The instinct to ask who she was and what had happened fought against the gut punch of compassion that seized him. Noah's little voice broke the silence. "Daddy, who's that?" Daniel stepped forward quickly and caught the woman before she collapsed. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand answers. He simply carried her inside, laying her on the old couch while Noah ran for a blanket. Her skin was cold, trembling beneath his touch, but her eyes flicked open for just a moment. There was something in them, pride, pain, fear, but no words. "Don't talk," Daniel muttered, grabbing a towel to dry her hair. "You're safe here." For the next few hours, he worked to clean her wounds, dabbing at the blood with a gentle hand, cooking broth and coaxing her to drink water. He had no training beyond what he'd learned patching up his own scrapes and burns at the garage, but he did his best. Noah, ever curious, sat by quietly, holding the woman's hand, whispering that she didn't need to be scared because his dad always fixed everything. By midnight, she had fallen asleep under a pile of blankets, her chest rising and falling in shallow but steady breaths. Daniel sat back in the chair across the room, studying her. Something about her nagged at him, her features seemed familiar, though battered, like a face he'd once seen across a magazine or a television screen. He shook it off, too tired to think. For the next 3 days, the woman barely spoke. She gave her name only once, Claire. She avoided eye contact, kept to the couch, and seemed to shrink away from questions. Daniel didn't pry. She was hurt, and whatever she had escaped from was none of his business. All that mattered was that she was safe under his roof, at least for now. Noah adored her instantly, bringing her little treasures from his toy box, drawing her pictures, and insisting she eat the last cookie from the jar. Slowly, Claire began to soften. She smiled faintly when Noah laughed, whispered thanks when Daniel left tea by her side, and one night even asked if she could help wash the dishes. Daniel refused. "You just focus on healing," he said. But as he said it, he noticed something in her eyes again, a kind of determination hidden under layers of exhaustion. On the 4th evening, Daniel came home later than usual, rain dripping off his jacket. He stepped into the house, shaking off the cold, only to stop dead in his tracks. Claire was standing in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking. The smell of roasted vegetables filled the air, and Noah sat at the table grinning proudly as if he had won a prize. For a second, Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "You didn't have to," he murmured. Claire looked at him with a gaze sharper than he had seen before. "I wanted to. I can't just take without giving back." He nodded, uneasy, and sat at the table. The meal was the best he'd eaten in months. But that night, as Noah went to bed and Daniel stepped outside for a breath of air, he finally placed her face. The realization hit like a punch. Claire wasn't just anyone. She was Claire Hensley, the CEO of Hensley Automotive, the corporate giant that had swallowed smaller repair shops across the state, including his. 3 years ago, when her company had expanded into his city, Daniel's modest family-owned garage had been crushed. Clients left for cheaper prices and bigger branding. His father's legacy, built over decades, had collapsed in less than a year. The bankruptcy had left Daniel penniless, stripped of pride, and desperate for work. He had blamed Claire Hensley for it all, the ruthless businesswoman with a perfect smile and cold eyes. And now, she was asleep on his couch, wearing his son's borrowed hoodie, living under his roof as if fate itself was mocking him. He leaned against the porch railing, his hands shaking with anger. He wanted to march inside, wake her up, and throw her out into the night. But then he remembered the bruises, the hollow fear in her eyes, and Noah's laughter as he showed her his drawings. His chest ached with conflict. When he returned inside, she was awake, sitting upright with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Their eyes met, and for the first time, her mask cracked. "You know who I am," she whispered. It wasn't a question. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Yeah. I know." Silence stretched between them like a taut rope. Claire looked away first. "Then you know what I did. Or, what my company did. You hate me." Daniel swallowed hard, his voice low. "I did. For a long time. I lost everything because of you." She flinched, her hand trembling slightly against the blanket. "I never meant for it to be personal. Business decisions," he cut her off with a sharp look. "Business decisions destroy people's lives." Her lips parted as if to argue, but instead she closed them again, shoulders sagging under invisible weight. "I know," she whispered. For the first time, Daniel saw something in her beyond the iron mask of the CEO he had once despised. Regret. Pain. Maybe even shame. Over the following days, the tension between them lingered like smoke. Daniel wanted to stay angry, to hold on to his resentment, but Claire wasn't the woman he had seen on magazine covers. She was quiet, haunted, carrying wounds that went deeper than her bruises. One night, as Noah slept, Daniel found her sitting by the window, staring into the rain. He sat across from her, the silence stretching. Finally, she spoke. "It was my husband." The words dropped like stones. Daniel frowned. "What?" "The man who hurt me. It was my husband. He's the reason I ran. He's the reason I ended up here." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, tears spilled down her cheeks. "Everyone sees me as this powerful woman, this untouchable CEO. But behind closed doors, I was trapped. And I couldn't tell anyone, because who would believe me? The woman who ruined lives, how could I be the victim?" Her sobs filled the room, raw and unguarded. Daniel sat still, his anger dissolving into something else, understanding. He knew what it was like to lose everything, to be powerless in the face of forces bigger than yourself. For the first time, he saw Claire not as the CEO who destroyed his father's garage, but as a broken human being. Slowly, he reached across the table, covering her trembling hand with his. "You're safe now," he said softly. "He's not going to find you here." Her eyes met his, and in them, he saw gratitude so fierce it nearly shattered him. Over time, Claire began to heal. She helped around the house, taught Noah math tricks, and even found herself laughing again. Daniel, though cautious, couldn't deny the bond forming between them. He didn't forgive everything overnight, resentment still lingered, but the walls around his heart began to crack. One evening, weeks later, Claire stood in the doorway as Daniel worked on an old car part at the kitchen table. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. He didn't look up. "Because you needed it. And because no one needed to see that we don't turn away from people in pain, no matter who they are." She smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. "You saved me, Daniel. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, a chance to be human again." In that moment, Daniel realized something too. He had taken her in without knowing who she was, without asking questions, simply because it was the right thing to do. And though she was the woman who had once ruined him, she was also the woman who, in some strange twist of fate, had given him back a sense of purpose, of compassion, and maybe even the possibility of love.